I am here with my old professor, John Banasiak, when I went to school at USD, University of South Dakota, for my undergrad in photo. And he is my hero in life and in photo. So, John, who influenced you as a child in art?
When I was a child, well, I did have an uncle who was a carpenter. My uncle Nestor. Oh, yeah, he was a lot of fun. He was busy, and he did a lot of things. He did some painting, did some drawing. He actually went to school at the Art Institute of Chicago for a few classes. Never got any degree or anything, but somehow he went there. Just for Saturday classes or something when he was in high school, maybe. So I was always kind of impressed the way he was able to draw things out, render a likeness in people sometimes. But his main thing was working with wood. He liked doing that. And I used to go in and help him in the shop. You know, I love the smell of wood, and you know, he'd have all these plans, and he'd be making stuff. And they actually had a business. It was a cabinetry thing. And just when he really started to take off with that, the Catholic Church decided that instead of the priest facing the altar, he was supposed to face the congregation. And so they had to make another altar, you know, between the priest and the congregation. And so he got all these jobs making altars around the south side of Chicago. And he would make them and I would finish them. You know, so I'd sand them and all that. But yeah, it taught me something about shape and form and, you know, kind of an appreciation for some kind of aesthetic, I think. And I mean, he had a good time not only doing those things, but just talking with him. You know, he was born in Poland. Came over during the First World War, and you know, all his memories and thoughts on his own growth in life and resettling in the U.S. and all that. You know, it was good. So, you know, in a way, it was maybe that. Right around that same time, I guess, you know, I was also kind of drawing. I'd do some things that I thought were pretty good, you know, as a little kid. But I wasn't sure. I mean, I was just having fun with it. But I noticed that a lot of other people didn't really draw all that much. And I remember once in third grade, I think we went through 7 different teachers. Second grade, I think it was second. Well, third grade, yeah. Yeah, Ascension grade school. And we were such a, I mean, we were a big class. I mean, there must have been 80 kids in the class. But you know, just one teacher and one nun, and we just drove them nuts. I mean, God, we were just like a bunch of rabid squirrels. I mean, we were all over the place. And I remember one time in the middle of class, you know, it seemed like she was, you know, going on about something I didn't care that much about. And I pulled out some paper and I started drawing a picture of her. Sister Frederick Louise was her name. And I really surprised myself. It looked just like her. You know, and I you know, really did glasses, you know, with nuns you didn't have to worry about too much detail. You know, because they had the habits on it. That was easy to draw, you know, but all the other stuff, it was good. It looked exactly like her, with the addition of an arrow going through her too, you know, which, you know, I thought, man, that's cool. You know, I showed a friend of mine, he started laughing, you know, and passing it around, and of course the nun showed up and said, what the? And she started crying and said, oh, geez, I felt bad. But I think that was the first time I really felt like I was able to draw something that really kind of looked like something, and I really got some degree of satisfaction from being able to do that, you know, and impressing my friends that, oh, wow, that looks just like her, you know, even with the arrow in her head, or the hole, or I had scars and stuff, you know, other things that maybe were inspired by Mad Magazine, which I used to read, you know. So anyway, I had to go to the convent and apologize, and oh man, it was, days. I had to go shopping with nuns for months after that. I mean, that's a whole other chapter. I mean, what they had in the refrigerator, I found out, cases of beer. I knew what those nuns were doing. You know, after class, but those, you know, something like that, I guess, you know, was my early inspiration. Maybe you know, just the fun of it, I guess. Yeah.
And as you like did more and more drawing and you got into high school, you were probably taking art classes, right?
Yeah.
So then, was it your art teacher who influenced you to develop in the arts, or did you have several people help you?
Oh, it was my art teacher. Oh, yeah, definitely. My family generally, you know, we were all factory workers. You know, everybody, my uncles, my dad, you know, everybody worked in factories. That was the main draw, you know, from all my relatives from Poland and the Ukraine. And when they came over, they got all these jobs along the shores of Lake Michigan. There were all these factories, steel mills, you know, muffler plants, Alice Chalmers, Interlake Steel. I mean, just tons. You know, Whiting Steel, Harris Hub. I mean, it just went on and on. All these factories. And the area that I grew up in, Harvey, Illinois, really had a lot of them scattered around, and so, you know, all my family worked there, and they expected me to work there too. You know, that my grandmother thought grade school was probably enough. You know, if you went to high school, well, you know, that's pretty good, but you know, definitely not anything after high school, because there were just all these jobs. And so, what was it?
Who influenced you to develop?
Oh yeah. And so nobody in my family, you know, they weren't really involved in the arts that much. My dad played accordion. I mean, musically, you know, they had certain talents that way. And you know, my uncle did do some painting and stuff too. But generally, it was something outside of making a living. And I never thought of it as something that you know, I'd make some kind of a career out of either. You know, I just did it mostly for the fun of it. And that's the way I went into the art classes there too. You know, in grade school, it seemed like I separated myself from a lot of other people in that I really liked doing artistic things, painting. If there were any posters that needed to be done, you know, the nuns would always come and get me, you know, programs or catalogs, and I'd draw something out. So anyhow, I did it for the fun of it, and I really had a good time doing it in high school. You know, doing ceramics. We even had art history in, you know, high school on the south side. No photography. There was a photo-related, kind of a mass comm thing, but no classes taught in photography, which is kind of surprising for the big school that it was. I mean, there were over 4,000 kids in that school. You know, and they had a lot of facility, you know, and a lot of money, it seemed. You know, well, it got diffused, I guess. But anyhow, there were 4 teachers in the art program at high school, 4 high school art teachers. Yeah, 4, maybe even 5. And I bounced around all the different classes, and some were 3D classes, art history, ceramics, you know, and painting and drawing. I love painting and drawing. You know, dabbled in all of it. You know, did some installation pieces. I remember it. It was good. And I really didn't have any background in it. You know, there were those art history things, but not very extensive. And you know, I think I just sat in on classes. I didn't really even sign up for one. But I produced a lot of stuff. You know, I used to like going through ideas real quick, and I mean, they just never ended. And I used to like helping my friends do their pieces too. I always thought that was good. Fun to do, kind of nice to throw some ideas around. I think I always kind of liked doing that too, interpreting things. And even, you know, as a little kid before high school and all that, whenever our games of neighborhood kids would get together and we'd go out on adventure. We used to do it almost every day. Do some crazy thing we'd almost get killed doing. That when we came back, it seemed difficult for a lot of people to put it into words what we did. And so in my group, I'd make up the story, and so I'd take all the different incidents and kind of put it together. And when we wanted to tell somebody what we did as far as our crazy antics of one kind or another, I was able to tell the story. I thought that was good. It seemed like I had the ability to do it, and it was fun. So helping other people with their work, was similar in a way that they needed to tell a certain story, and I just helped them tell the story. There's something with the piece, whatever, and then of course my own stuff too. So somewhere around my senior year, right over Christmas or something, one of my teachers, Sally Liffendahl, took me aside. We were walking down the hall, I remember, and she said, well, so what are you going to do when you get out of high school? And I told her, well, I'll probably work at Miramont Mufflers, a place that a lot of my friends and other people, father worked there, and other people in the neighborhood, they always had job openings and all that. And I told her, I'd probably do that. She said, well, what about doing some art-related thing, or going on to school? And seriously, I had not really even thought of that, going on to college. We didn't have the money first off, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. I didn't really have anybody in the family who did it except my Uncle Emil. After the Second World War, he took advantage of that GI Bill and actually went on to college into an athletic kind of thing. He was a coach and all that. So there was something there. But it wasn't something that our family pushed, all the members of our family. And she said, well, come in tomorrow, I'll show you some things. And she had a catalog from the Art Institute of Chicago. She thought, well, it's right up the Illinois Central train tracks. We lived, maybe about 40 miles out of the city. It wasn't even that much, maybe less, because it was kind of considered the south side of Chicago, south suburb, maybe. And I lived right next to the Illinois train station tracks there, too, so it'd be easy to go. So anyhow, she had a husband, Robert Liffendahl, who taught painting at the Art Institute of Chicago. And so she got all the papers and everything to fill out, to apply to go to school there. Scholarship forms and everything, which was just a complete foreign language to me and everybody in my family. My father had some health problems at the time. He was, working in that factory, smoking a box of cigars a day. He used to play accordion, and he'd be playing out almost every weekend with a band that he had formed, kind of a polka band, that actually I played in, along with my brother Joe, played clarinet, and I played trumpet, and my other brother played drums, my dad played the accordion. I mean, it was bizarre. It was hilarious, playing in a polka band on the south side of Chicago in high school. I used to play trumpet pretty good. I still pick it up every once in a while, but it was one of the jobs I had after high school too. I worked as a busboy at Gino's Steakhouse, and I taught trumpet and guitar at Ronald Brothers Music School. Yeah, I know, in high school. Yeah. So anyhow, what was I getting at? She had me fill out all these. And my dad was having these problems, and actually, about a week after graduation, he died of a heart attack when I was just graduating high school. And so, my mother, she had, 5 kids, trying to figure things out. But I filled all those things out, and right around that same time after my dad died, and my plans were to probably work in the factory, and in fact I applied for jobs after my dad died. When I went and applied for a job at Miramont Muffler, they gave me his job. So I had his locker, in Miramont Mufflers, and his friends who he had worked with for over 20 years were, they had their lockers next to my dad's, and they'd call me by his nickname and stuff. I was like a younger version, my dad. Yeah. So they loved it. I mean, oh man, and me and my dad, we just always got along. It was sad to see him go, of course, but we had good times. There's a picture of my Little League team, and my dad's the coach.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's some military thing there. He's second on the left or on the right of that guy in the middle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyhow, right around that time, I get this letter in the mail, and it says that I was accepted at the Art Institute of Chicago, which I thought, well, I don't know what that means. Okay. So, and then another letter came and said that it was all paid for. What was it? It was Friday club scholarship. It was an Illinois State scholarship. It was some art institute. I don't know. Anyhow, it all kind of came, and I looked at it, and I thought, well, this is kind of interesting, it could be good. And I showed it to my mother. She thought, she's just trying to figure out what she's going to do next. She didn't even know how to drive a car or anything. So she was just trying to keep things going. And anyhow, I really thought about it, and I talked with my teacher again. I'd see her a couple of times, Sarah Liffendahl. I mean, we'd always talk. She's a great person. But really, it was because of her having me fill out all that stuff. And actually, she saved a lot of paintings and drawings and things that I would just forget about, because, I didn't even care. I just liked doing it. So I accumulated a ton of stuff, I guess. And so she had it in a portfolio, and a couple of the other teachers saved a few things too, and they put in this thing. And that was my portfolio, which I really didn't even put together. They put it together, basically. So she took it up there and gave it to her husband. Robert Liffendahl. He was another nice guy too, really good person. He was on my undergraduate committee. Was it graduate or undergraduate committee? Really insightful guy. So anyhow, it was really because of my high school art teacher, Sarah Liffendahl, deciding that this might be a good direction for me to go in. I loved it. I was having a good time doing it. I figured I'll just have a good time at the Art Institute too. I didn't know what the hell it was about. Really, I didn't know anything about art history, any of that stuff. And I had never been to the Art Institute of Chicago before in my life. I keep thinking I was there once, and I think my dad, on occasion we'd go into the city, just as a family thing. We go to Grant Park, and we go to Lincoln Park Zoo and walk around the lakefront or whatever, go to a concert in Grant Park sometime. And as a little kid, I could swear I remember being in there and seeing a Hans Hofmann painting. For some reason, it's embedded in my mind, and I could remember the very one too. It was kind of orange, blue, beautiful Hans Hofmann thing. Years later, when I was going to school there, and I was a night watchman at the Art Institute of Chicago, I remember going up to that painting often and thinking, man, it's kind of some archetypal composition in my mind. The way it was put together, the way the colors were put together, it had something of a matrix that seemed to fit perfectly over something in my mind. But I really, of course, he's not around anymore. And I never did find out if we actually did that, but I think we did. So anyhow, I decided to do that, and that was 1968. So I graduated in June of '68, and then classes started in late summer. I think classes actually started maybe in mid-August or something, early August. And I remember getting on a train, going in. I think I went there a couple times before just to, get all the paper. Really good people there, and they said, oh, well, you got to do this, do that, and I said, okay, am I going to have fun? Okay, well, great. And as long as I'm going to have fun doing this, that's great. And so, I worked jobs too, as a night watchman, or I was a bartender. Worked in some photo studios later on, but there was always some. I worked in a hospital, and various things. But when I first went in, though, in 1968, I'm kind of jumping ahead. I first went in '68. They had the Democratic convention in Chicago in '68. It was the big, anti-war demonstration, that was going on in the Conrad Hilton, and the hippies, against the Chicago Police Department and all that. And so I'm sitting in the train going into the city, for my first class. I look out the window and there's tear gas and police and everything. I mean, you just see the whole panoramic of this political upheaval going on. I thought, holy crap, this is going to be something. I mean, there were a lot of race issues going on around Chicago right around that time too, because you had Martin Luther King getting shot, Bobby Kennedy getting shot. There's some areas in Chicago that were really like war zones. I'd go through them every once in a while on my way somewhere, and really it was just, oh man, it was just crazy. And so that was kind of mixed in with it, the anti-war stuff, and I knew a little bit about it, but I just wasn't that much into politics. Nobody in my family was. I mean, even though I was a paper boy, I delivered papers and everything. Generally in my family or even in the neighborhood, it didn't seem like people really read the paper and understood what was going on in the world that much. My grandparents, one set, they actually lived with us for about 11 years or so. They couldn't even read or write. I mean, none of my grandparents were literate. They mostly just worked on farms, stuff in Poland, and they never learned how to speak English. So as a little kid, I had to learn Ukrainian just to kind of speak with my grandparents somewhat. But there wasn't an awareness, of politics, or issues or whatever. In our neighborhood, it seemed like there wasn't any racial problem, that we could see, but I was just a kid, and I wouldn't be able to recognize it probably. There were a couple of times when I had really good friends who were black kids, from grade school. And, of course, they'd come over to the house, and have dinner, and we'd go out playing baseball and everything. And I just didn't think anything of it. They were just who they were, And there were a few people in the neighborhood on occasion who would come up and say, hey, don't be bringing those black kids over here, something like that. And in a way, I remember those things, so there must have been, definitely an undercurrent, some racial thing going on, but I really appreciate that. Now I think about it, because it really got me to be more independent in my own thinking, because when those elderly people in the community, who I usually thought, were, they were elders, they must have accumulated some wisdom and understanding about life and everything. When they come up and say, hey, don't be bringing those black kids over, instantly I thought, holy shit, adults don't know anything. They don't know about the things that I just assumed that they did know about. And so it started me thinking, well, what else, don't they know? What don't I know? I'm just assuming they're in charge of stuff. Well, shit, I can't let them be in charge. They don't know what the hell is going on. So I tried to figure things out myself. So really, their ignorance, and shallowness, was really kind of inspirational in a way for me to really think for myself, and not relying on, my, elders in my neighborhood, they told me to do, so I guess I should just do it. And it bleeded into a lot of other things like church or whatever. I just went along with whatever traditions were there. But after a certain point, and I think that was kind of thing that started it off. I really started thinking for myself, and then, I really started to grow, not only as a human being, but then my own art became a lot more sophisticated and stuff too. At least thoughtful. I thought about it, considered it as a true reflection of something about me. Anyhow, I started putting things together then, just as I was going into the city, and seeing all these riots and stuff, it wanted me to somewhat see what was going on and try to understand it. And I really started getting more into politics. And of course, I had to go to the University of Chicago to take all my academics, is the way they had it worked out. So you take studio courses at the Art Institute and all your academics at the University of Chicago. And, going to the University of Chicago, luckily, I think I've always had a good imagination. So no matter what it was, even if I didn't know about it, it was just given basic information, I could kind of put it together in some form of understanding for myself and actually think of other reshufflings of the information, in a lot of different ways to make it look different from different perspectives. I think there's some things before that. Now I think this is great, because it gets me to think, more about what the hell, how did I get here? Seeing all those things go on, was inspirational to get me started into figuring things out. University of Chicago, all that, reshuffling ideas, looking at them in different ways. Another thing that kind of did that was when I, again, was back in grade school. There was a thing I used to do, and I still do it, but I kind of take it for granted. It's just a little exercise that I do momentarily every once in a while. And it started when I was probably in about third grade or so. It's kind of connected to this reshuffling thing. Spy movies, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., some novels. I used to read the James Bond novels, me and my friends. I thought they were kind of interesting. All the mystery and intrigue. But when I was in third grade, just as kind of a theatrical thing that I used to play with myself, I'd imagined that my pencil or a pen was actually a camera. This is before I had any kind of thing connected with photo. And I would imagine, with the pen in my pocket, that I could, see everything, but I was recording it in some way. And I could see it from that lower perspective. I could also take my pen out and put it somewhere. I remember having to deliver something to another classroom. And so I got out of the classroom, and this note, I had to take it upstairs, give it to another nun, and come back. And as I was coming down the staircase, as I looked over the hallway, I could look through a transom, kind of an upper window, and see my class, my third grade class, through this window from the stairwell. And I thought, wow, there's Rob, look at those knuckleheads down there. There's about 80 kids in there. And I thought, hey, I got my camera. I pull out my pen, I put it on a banister there. And I thought, yeah, this is good. Then I can always kind of watch from this perspective when I go back to class. So I went back into the classroom, and I sat down. And I could look out the window, I could see the pen up there. And I could imagine what the view was from that perspective. And I started doing that around the playground, various things. I could put something somewhere. No matter where I was at, I could see it from that thing. It was just a little game I used to play. And I still do it, and I've been doing it for years in a way that, it's just something that I don't even really think about that much. But I could look at certain things, some of the objects in this room, and imagine what everything else looks like from that point. So as a photographer, as time went on, it came in handy because as I'd be talking to somebody or in a situation where I was trying to document it, I could imagine myself in so many different places and how it would look. If it looked really good, I'd go to that spot and photograph or something. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing. But anyhow, I don't know, it's just enjoying. It's just some little game I play, with myself all the time.
Well, with everything you need to have a game though. Like I
Yeah.
remember having a game like that for
Yeah.
swimming. Like, okay, I'm gonna beat this person going off a wall. Like, and it was
Yeah.
only I would know about it.
Yeah.
But it like made you better. And,
Right.
but do you feel like that's when you kind of got into like almost a leadership role, or do you feel like when you were a kid you were they kind of picked you as a leader?
Yeah, and I wasn't sure, really what all was involved. Because I always thought, I was kind of like everybody else. And I kind of fit in. It was a great neighborhood. We all played our parts. I played outfield. So-and-so always played first base. So-and-so was a pitcher. Quarterback, and lineman. It was sports-related stuff. But a lot of other things too. We knew who was good at one thing or another, and we just kind of relied on them to do it in a way, or be the leader in that thing. But I think it was one phys ed thing that was outside of school, because we didn't have a gym in the Catholic thing. We had to go somewhere else, and they hired people to do it. And some new guy was hired, and we all kind of walked into the gym. There were 100 kids or something. And I remember the guy said, "Okay, well, we're going to have to start these exercise schedules and programs and stuff. I need a couple of leaders or something." And he said, "Okay, you get up here and you're going to be the leader." And it was me. And I wasn't sure, and okay, everybody said okay, and we started doing it. And I kind of wondered, I was doing it, why did he pick me? I mean, I wasn't any physical specimen who was anything better, but I don't know. In the neighborhood too, people would always kind of come to me and ask me something, maybe because I was a storyteller. They figure, oh, well, he knows a story. Well, if he knows a story, then he must know about all the other things. If he knows how to put the story together, he knows all the different elements. So, okay, well, he could arrange things. He could be the organizer. Maybe there's some kind of I mean, look around here, you think, what? That guy's organized? In a sense, it's organized, but I feel a lot of times I'm scattered, but I think of it as throwing out a big net or something. It's scattered, but I'm just trying to get more and more in, and I kind of sift it through to make some kind of sense for myself. But maybe it had something to do with that. That I was able to put things together into a story, or condense things into a piece of art. A painting, with all the scatter of ideas and chaos that we come in contact with all the time, I was able to pick out specific things that had some element of strength and something out of it. So maybe that had something to do with it. I really don't know.
How would you explain or describe your leadership in the classes that you teach now?
I don't think it's any different from in my neighborhood in a way. First off, anybody taking photo, I automatically consider them part of the family or neighborhood. There's just no question. I don't care who they are. I mean, it doesn't matter. Once they're in here, well, then we're going to work something out, whatever it is. And I just like doing that. I like, in a way, I like to try and understand somebody's idea and try and wrap myself around it, and then look at it from a lot of different perspectives. And kind of reinterpret the idea in a lot of different ways to see if there's any different way that's stronger. I guess in a way it's kind of like looking around at a subject from a lot of different perspectives to find out what the strongest way of looking at it might be. And maybe with the ideas too, the idea could be, the starting point, whatever people put together, it could be pretty strong, but just for the hell of it, why not shuffle it around and look at it in a number of different ways to see, in fact, if there is some stronger way to do it. And so there's this overall feeling of a push to get the best out of what people are doing. I find it more interesting to try and do that with anything. And yeah, I mean, even in my own stuff, and I try and do that, it almost seems tougher to do my own stuff. Maybe I'm just too close to it, but with other people, I could be more objective, look around and suggest a few things. If it seems like it really catches, then as they produce it, I'm more excited by what they've done. It seems like a more poetic thing, or maybe I could think of myself as a catalyst that maybe throws a few things out, and then they invent something beyond that, which usually does happen. And whatever that new invention is so fun to look at. So in a way, I do it for my own fun and enjoyment, but there's also this element of really just trying to help people tell their story or present their idea in the strongest possible way. And I don't know if that's leadership or whatever, but mostly that's what I like doing. Doing that, providing an environment that those kind of things can happen and grow. That's maybe at the heart of it. Providing some, introducing some processes, some techniques, all the mechanics, all the chemistry, all the magic, presenting as much of that as I can, to maybe extend the potential visual vocabulary that somebody would draw from. And creating kind of an energy in the photo area that is one that is somewhat relaxed and playful, without tension, without competition, without some heavy burden of grades, those kind of things. I try and move as much of that kind of crap out of the way so that people could be creative, as creative as they could be. And then I think of myself as a resource person to just help them do it. And really, that's it. I mean, I don't have any big agenda. I don't have any kind of vision that I'm trying to get people to do. I mean, I'm trying to understand it all as much as anybody else. So I consider myself as kind of an older student. I try and teach what I know, but so many people know so many other things from different perspectives of understanding that it enables me to grow, in my own way. So it's as much a learning process for me, with those junior, senior shows or the graduate shows, reviews. Really, I love those things because I learn so much, about the whole creative process, what people are trying to deal with, how they're trying to reflect themselves in their work, and the kind of language that they're trying to invent for themselves. Man, I just love that. So anyhow, I don't know if that answered the question, but
how do you think your leadership, or how do you describe yourself as like an older student learning from people? How do you feel like you've influenced them? Like it can be from comments that you make from a portfolio, or during reviews.
Well, one influence I hope is being able to look at something and reshuffle that idea in other ways, different languages, different presentation techniques, lighting, trying to pick out all the different elements that somebody potentially could use in trying to say what they need to say. And in my own mind, in my own comments, just kind of thinking out loud in a way of how it could be redone. Not to say that it's not enough in the way that they do it, but you don't know if it's enough, maybe unless you're able to see it from so many different perspectives. So I don't cover all the different perspectives, but as I look at something, if it generate some kind of memory or thought of somebody else's work or some mythological connection or whatever. I like to present that, as feedback. And sometimes people will get something out of it, and maybe it doesn't apply, but I figure I'll just put it out there. People can sort through it and see if it does shed some other light within their own understanding of what they're trying to do. And in the process, I'm trying to understand it myself. And so, I guess at the heart of it, maybe I reshuffle it in my own mind to see if I can understand it at a deeper level. So whatever they present, okay, there it is, and that's what they're presenting, this is what I think they're doing. What if this were to happen? Or if I looked at it this way, or it involved politics in some way, or some other philosophical notion, how does that make it seem? And as I add these other elements to it, sometimes I'm able to understand it at a deeper level for myself. So really, a lot of times it's just thinking out loud in a process of really just trying to understand it. And if it seems to people that I understand it more by doing that, they might understand it at a deeper level themselves, or at least know that there is a process, no matter what you get, to reshuffle it and re-look at it, just to see if there's anything else to be gleaned from it as far as understanding and self-discovery, to really get at the heart of what the idea is. Because I think a lot of what people do, it's kind of touching at the main idea. It maybe really the heart of important, significant issues in a person's life. Sometimes it's just too powerful to even touch directly. And so indirectly touching it and dealing with it is maybe the only way you could see it. Sometimes in the dark, I think, if you look at a certain thing, maybe even stars, if you were to go out on a clear night and you see some stars, you can look up at those stars, but then they kind of disappear in a way. But if you turn your eye and look at it from the corner of your eye, you're able to see it a little bit more. And so, maybe it's involved with that. It's not really touching directly, the main issue, but looking at it from a lot of different corners in your own eye and your own heart. You might see a little bit more of it, as if it's lying in some other dimension. You have to figure out the right combination or the right kind of magic or chemistry or symbolism, that'll enable you to see it a little bit better. So,
do you think?
Here, hold up a second.
I know there's like two that I really want. Are you good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, one of the questions that I really would like you to touch upon is, I know like you and I have personally talked about like goals in life and the whole famous aspect, and you said like, you're just happy doing your art, but we've never really talked about it in the classroom. Like, what are your goals as a teacher today? What do you want to accomplish or have your students accomplish? Or
I guess inventing language for themselves that they could tell their life story with. Or at least understand what their life is about, who they are, what they're wrapped in. If they could invent a language that enables them to peel the surfaces of their own book, it's an own story. I think that's at the heart of it. Yeah, I know there's other teachers, and I commend them for it. I guess they bring in the other element of business side of art, the whole art game thing that really takes a lot of effort. But there's always the risk with that of adjusting your art so it fits in certain venues. It doesn't have to be that, of course. You could just do your own art, and if you could separate yourself from it and deal with the business people, deal with the galleries, deal with having shows and making the contacts and networking and all that. To do that without it influencing your work in a bad way, then that would be a good element to bring into it. But I just really haven't. I just can't find the interest or the excitement with playing that game. And it's probably just me. I had opportunities myself to do it, and I try it a little bit, and my heart just wasn't in it. I'd be in a position where I could go and make connections with the rich people, the big buyers, and all that. And I'd have shows in New York or whatever, be able to potentially do that. And I just really didn't feel like doing it. So the excitement I get is mostly just the process of working on my own visual language and working out my own ideas, trying to make sense out of my life through these different visual things that I do. And writing. I mean, I like writing. I like to spend more time doing that as well. And music, a lot of expressive things. They do take some major theme or issue that you have going on inside yourself, and it really puts it in a different perspective, translating it into these other types of language. And I really appreciate that. And sometimes it's, a lot of fragments and a lot of things scattered around, but little by little I'll fit pieces together for myself. And I'm satisfied with doing that. Even my son Byron asked me the other night, about 2 nights ago, "Ever think of selling your stuff, Dad?" I said, "I don't think about it much. I don't really have any interest in doing it. I'll have to leave it to somebody else, or probably in the end I'll just take all this and donate it to some Sioux City Art Center, or I don't know, someplace, Art Institute of Chicago, give it all to Joseph Bellows out in California, I don't know. It really doesn't matter that much to me, so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's odd. My own teachers, I guess, really weren't involved in that either. There's a whole other tradition with education, I guess, back when I was going to school, and, the late 60s and through the 70s, at the University of Chicago, at the Art Institute. It was about doing the work, just doing the art. Even at the University of Chicago, which was a big school for writers, and I took some writing classes there, and I should kind of look back and see who my teachers were, because a lot of them, I probably were pretty well known, and I didn't know it at the time. Even some of the photography teachers that I had, I used to ride the bus with them. We'd go on anti-war demonstrations together, doing all kinds of stuff, and now I read about them in history books, I find it kind of interesting, but they, at the University of Chicago, would just deal with the heart of whatever subject that they were working on, and there was rarely, in fact, I can never remember any of them talking about how this is going to relate to a potential job. It just never came up.
Were they more interested in educating you guys and helping you figure out?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure people would look at that in some different ways. Of course, those were different years. getting a job was no big deal, and my own experience with getting jobs, if I needed some job, I'd just go get a job. It just didn't seem that difficult. I got that job at. I used to work, commercially for different people, Victor Skrybneski, a number of people that were pretty well-known people in Chicago for commercial stuff, just to kind of do it. And then I worked for Playboy for a while too, and it was just by coincidence that I'm trying to think of his name. Kaufman, his first name. Anyhow, I was the photo editor for Playboy. What's his name? Charles Kaufman. Anyhow, he was on some panel picking people for the Time Life book series on photo, and there was a whole panel, and they picked my stuff to be in the book, and he was on the panel. And when I went in for the job at Playboy, I went into the elevator, and he happened to be in there going up to the studios, and I was just in there to apply for a summer job. Somebody said there might be an opening there. And he asked me, hey, well, you're John Banasiak. I just heard your stuff in a book. And, I really didn't know who he was that much. Nobody told me who was going to be on the panel or anything. Anyhow, he asked me what I was doing, and I said I was going to apply for that job up there. And he said, oh, well, there was no interview or anything. He said, yeah, you show up tomorrow. So I was doing that, and I did it for a while. It was kind of interesting, but after a while, after a few years doing that and working for a couple other people, some photographers from there also did some freelance stuff, photographing for books. Park Benet auction house in New York City or something. Always needed some help, so I'd always kind of help them do that. It was all educational for me. But after a while, I thought, I really don't want to do commercial stuff. I just didn't feel like doing it. And so I just said, well, actually I brought somebody up there, because I knew if I left, they'd have to fill that position. And so there were a few friends of mine who wanted to work for Playboy. There's always somebody around, and I thought, yeah, okay. So I brought him up there and said, he's going to take my place from now on. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah. So they just signed him up, and I went down the street, and really I just kind of left, walked down the street. I knew there was some job in pathology at the Northwestern Memorial Hospital, which was about a block and a half away on Michigan Avenue. And I didn't have any background, no experience or anything doing any kind of medical photography, but I always thought it'd be interesting. So I went in there and introduced myself to the head of pathology, a guy named Roger Minnick, and just really a nice guy. And he said, well, what do you know about photo? I told him what I knew, as much as I could. And he said, okay, well, just show up tomorrow. And I got a job as a medical photographer. Next day I was photographing in the operating room, doing shots there and taking pictures of people in the emergency room. And then he showed me how to work an electron microscope. And I worked that, taking pictures of sections of kidney and liver biopsies and stuff, which was interesting. I loved that stuff. I loved all the people there. I'd take all the pictures and go in the darkroom, process all the film, make prints for all the doctors before digital. And I'd make all the prints and label them, have them all filed while listening to Studs Terkel on the radio. My favorite interview person, I don't know if you know Studs Terkel, in Chicago. Oh God! Before Oprah, everybody thinks she's good, but even she would have to say, as one of her major influences was the radio show of Studs Terkel. Just interviewing people in Chicago, Mahalia Jackson or Big Bill Brucey or musical people, political people. God, the guy was great. And he'd have a show that would be on for 3 hours. I'd listen to him in a dark room. And back in those days, I think I was even smoking a cigar. I was, what, shoot, 23, something like that. Anyhow, I had a good time doing that. And then, what happened? How did that go? Oh, well, yeah, I did that for a while, and then, yeah, before that, jeez, well, I gotta get my years right. I also worked for some other places in between there for a place called Buffalo Studios, where we used to do composites for people in theater. And we'd do actors, comedians, and all that. And there were a lot of comedians and theatrical venues, in Chicago, Goodman Theater, Steppenwolf, and all the different places. And I remember doing the composite for Jim Belushi. Came in there one day. He was an interesting guy, but we were just doing that too. So I did that along with that. But then, anyhow, it all came to an end when school started. Mostly these were summer jobs. Although the medical thing was a little bit longer, and I remember I had to quit that because I got together with some friends of mine who liked riding bikes at night, or after work. We'd ride around Chicago. We'd ride for hours and hours. I mean, it was just so much fun going around the lake. We didn't even know where the hell we were going. And at one time, one of them said, and it could have been me, hey, we should just keep driving someday, what the hell, we're not married, we don't have, very many responsibilities. We should just pack up something and just head out east. And that was like 1976. And we thought, the bicentennial's coming up. We should ride our bike out to Washington, D.C., from Chicago. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So about 4 of us were going to do it. And then we set a date, May 30th or something, or May 15th, something like that. And as it got closer and closer, everybody started dropping out. And I was the only one left. And I said, well, shit, I'm doing it. So when the day came, a couple of weeks before, I told Roger Minnick, I got to give you my notice because I'm going to go do this bike trip. And he said, yeah, I could understand it. I could do that. He said, I wish I was going to do that. And it was good. I mean, he was such a nice guy. And he said, when you get back, maybe come back and we'll give you your job back if you want. So that was the job thing. That's what I was getting at. Is in the early 70s, before, there were more jobs than people. So, you could look around and find things all over the place. And then right around that time, 74 or so, you had women coming into the workforce more and more. You had people from other countries coming in. You had new technology coming into play, so that was eliminating some jobs. Little by little, there were more and more people and fewer jobs. So, you're running out of time. Shoot, I'm getting into a whole other thing here.
You're like, it was a joke.
Yeah, right, yeah. It was kind of an installation thing, all that, the lights and rotating things and, oh, God.
And I always, remember that story of that, humor.
Yeah.
And, it's so funny because, when I teach kids, are you filming right now? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. When I teach kids, I have set up for to me this huge donut. Yeah. And it's so interesting when you're an outsider, mm-hmm. maybe even an artist, finding humor in something that's being made. And I don't know, it's this connection that's very childish.
Yeah.
But everybody laughs.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that funny when they look at art.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe it has to do with the unexpected. Mm-hmm. That you make something that nobody thought of.
Yeah.
And, there it is, and that's something to do with humor, the unexpected.
There's something that's so simple.
Yeah.
And then, with that big donut. Who would ever think of a giant donut with sprinkles? Sprinkles that fall off. And you're just like, yeah, whenever I get a sprinkle donut, my sprinkles fall off too.
I know, it's such a waste.
Yeah, it is. But, so what John and I, what I will be doing for this project to come together is, John is a very talented photographer, and his recent series is called Purgatory, right?
Yeah, Views from the Halls of Purgatory, something like that. Yes.
And he's been shooting with a medium format Hasselblad camera, and he's been printing them Palladium or Van Dyke Browns?
Van Dyke Brown.
And what I've asked him is if I could borrow a negative and do a sandwich negative with one of my pieces. The stories that he told us tonight had a very common theme of, you know, he's always a student. And like he said earlier, like an older student. With this art piece, hopefully it'll come together as like two students learning from each other and also teaching each other. Is there anything that you would like to add into this interview as teachers, or about teachers or leadership or heroes or just art in general?
Well, just, you know, what you were talking about, weaving together of your image, you know, maybe something I do. It's what we all do, I guess, as human beings, is we kind of interact and take some of the discoveries that we each make, and we see if we could stitch together some kind of a fabric, some kind of a embroidery or tapestry of meaning within our own culture, I guess, you know, as artists, you know, just as a group of people. I think we're always interweaving, you know, we're always interacting and amalgamating some sense out of what's there, you know, what everybody has to offer, and we create, you know, who we are as human beings, or as you know, Western culture. And so maybe you know, we're doing it on a smaller scale in a way, but it becomes symbolic, you know, what we do all the time. Take each other's ideas, overlap our own ideas, you know, and maybe other ideas too, you know, and we create, you know, understanding from a number of different perspectives. And, we become who we should be. Yeah, I don't know. What else you want me to say?
No, that was good. I'll end with this. What I've learned as a teacher, and even being a student of John's, is that we're never fully 100% teacher. I'm inspired by my students. I know I've been inspired by John, and I'm sure you've been inspired by your students.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And so
yeah, it's kind of a 50-50 thing, teaching. Yeah, I learned at least as much as I would think students learn. Yeah, be surprised and shocked at students who have learned more from me than I learned from them.
And through this duality, I realized that's what makes you a teacher, is learning from each other and collaborating, which is what this art piece will be about. Thank you. Thanks, John.